So, cool. Okay, hello everyone. Today's session is eating better to boost brain productivity. So basically, I'll be covering the link between nutrition and brain function, and how we can optimize our nutrition to basically optimize our cognitive function. And also how we can fit good nutrition into our busy and stressful lives as students. I'll just introduce myself a little bit first. So my name's Hannah. I have an undergraduate degree in human nutrition and sport and exercise science, and I'm currently doing my master's in human nutrition. I love sport and fitness, and I'm really passionate about food and nutrition, and I believe it plays a huge role in our overall well-being. And I really hope you can take some valuable information away from today's session. So why should we care about good nutrition? Every food that we put into our body affects basically every single aspect of our physical and mental well-being. So good nutrition is linked to decreased risk of diabetes, heart disease, stroke, better immune function, better mood, healthy gut microbiota, adequate growth during adolescence and pregnancy, better cognition, it's linked to better mental health, smoother digestion, and increased energy. So today I'm going to be specifically focusing on how food can affect our attention, our learning, our memory, and our physical and our mental energy levels, as these are all factors that can impact on our productivity and our ability to perform academically whilst completing our degrees. So ultimately, what we eat can have a massive flow-on effect to how our brain function and therefore how we're achieving during our studies. So food is, I'm just going to move this here. Food is essential for the brain. So basically, for our brain to work, we need carbohydrates for energy. We need vitamins and minerals to keep all the metabolic pathways in the brain running. So all the connections in our brain running. And without food, it's basically like a car running on empty. It's not going to go. So we know from research that poor dietary choices, such as the modern day or Western diet, which is high in processed food, high in bad fats and high in sugar, is associated with nutrient deficiencies. And this is because processed unhealthy foods are high in energy, but they're low in nutrients. So when we're eating lots of processed foods, it can displace the nutrient-rich foods that we need in our diet to keep us healthy. And then studies have shown that vitamin and mineral deficiencies are linked with impaired cognition. And then on the other hand, good nutrient status is associated with higher academic performance. So we can see there's a clear relationship there between the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we're getting from food and our cognition and brain function. So I'm going to go over firstly some key nutrients that are important for our brain and what food sources we can get them from. So to start off with, B vitamins. The role of B vitamins is for making energy in our cells. So with a lack of B vitamins, the energy making process in our cells cannot work as efficiently, so our cells aren't going to be able to produce enough energy, and this can lead to us feeling tired. Studies have demonstrated that low vitamin B status is associated with feelings of physical and mental fatigue. So mental fatigue is that feeling when you feel like your brain has burnt out and you can't focus and you just can't do any more of an assignment or study. And this can ultimately lead to reduced productivity through things like procrastination, lack of focus, and lack of creativity. Then on the other hand, again, studies show that good vitamin B status is associated with better feelings of energy and better cognitive performance. So it makes sense when we're more energized, we're going to be more productive, have better focus, and basically have more energy to put towards the tasks we are doing. So sources of B vitamins are dairy products, meat, poultry, eggs, fish and seafood, and leafy green vegetables. And it's important to know that vitamin B12, so there's a range of B vitamins from 1 to 12, and number 12 can only be obtained from animal sources. So that's our meat, chicken, eggs, and dairy. So if you are vegetarian or vegan, or you don't eat a lot of meat or dairy, and if you think you have feelings of tiredness on a day-to-day basis, it could possibly be a good idea to get your B12 levels checked, and you can just get that checked by doctor, because if you aren't eating animal foods, then it can be a little bit difficult to get B12, and that's a really important one for energy. Next, let's look at iron, and iron is the most common nutrient deficiency in the world. And iron is important because it carries oxygen around our bodies and then obviously to our brains. So with low iron, there is less oxygen being delivered to our body and to our brain, which can lead to symptoms such as low energy and mental fatigue again. Iron is also important for neurotransmission. So neurotransmission is the messages being sent around in our brain. So with low iron, our neurotransmission is going to be slower in the brain, and this is going to lead to decreases in brain function. Therefore, low iron status is going to negatively affect our cognitive function. And studies have shown the link between iron deficiency and cognitive function. So people who are deficient in iron have cognitive impairments, such as poor attention span, poor memory, poor thinking, and problem solving. And studies have also shown that when you have good iron status, this is associated with better academic performance. So our iron sources are here. There's two types of iron. The first one is heme iron, and this is found in animal products. And this is more readily absorbed in our digestive tract. And then the other type of iron is non-heme iron, and this is from plant sources, and this is less readily absorbed than the other type of iron in our digestive tract. So for heme iron, we can get this from red meats, white meat, poultry, eggs, seafood, fish, things like that. And then our non-heme iron is from greens, vegetables, legumes, lentils, whole potatoes, nuts and seeds, and fortified breads and cereals. And so when I say fortified, this means that some breads and cereals that you can buy, they have had iron added into them. So for iron, there's also different types of foods that can inhibit iron and enhance the absorption of iron in our digestive tract. So let's say we're eating a steak. Just because we're eating a steak doesn't mean our body's going to absorb every single bit of iron in that meal. So things like tea, coffee, and calcium can inhibit the absorption of iron. So it is a good idea to avoid drinking tea, coffee, and things like a glass of milk or a big bowl of yogurt with your meal. We generally suggest to wait 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after having a meal to have these sorts of things. And then on the other hand, vitamin C is an enhancer of iron absorption in your digestive tract. So foods high in vitamin C are Brussels sprouts, capsicum, potatoes, broccoli, and then your citrus fruits such as kiwi fruit and orange. So if you're wanting to enhance the absorption of iron with your meals, adding these sorts of fruits and vegetables alongside your meal can enhance the absorption. Next is magnesium. So magnesium is important for neurotransmission in the brain, so the signaling going on in your brain. So this is going to be important for your thinking processes, how fast and how productively you can think. Low magnesium levels have been shown to cause learning and memory impairments in animal studies. And in human studies, low serum magnesium is also associated with poorer cognitive performance. So our sources of magnesium: nuts and seeds, whole grains, so whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, brown rice, oats, barley, anything that has the whole grain, green leafy vegetables, soy products such as tofu, beans and legumes, and avocados. Our next nutrient is omega-3. So omega-3 fatty acids are used to build the nerve and brain cells and keep them healthy. And our body cannot synthesize omega-3 internally. So we have to get this from our foods. Unfortunately, the modern day or Western diet is high in saturated in trans fats, which are our bad fats, but low in omega-3, which is our good fats that have beneficial properties. So studies have shown that omega-3 deficiency can impair learning and memory. And in human studies, those with better omega-3 when compared to those with lower omega-3 had better attention and reduced anger, anxiety, and depression. So our sources of omega-3 include oily fish is the most rich source of omega-3. So salmon, fresh or from a can, sardines, and mackerel. Also white fish such as snapper, teriyaki, gurnard contain some omega-3. Our plant sources include chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, and soybean products. And meat, dairy, and poultry from grass-fed animals also contain a moderate amount of omega-3. Next is flavonoids. So flavonoids are not vitamins or minerals. They are just another type of chemical that's found in fruits, vegetables, grains, tea, coffee, and wine. And research has shown that flavonoids are important for the functioning of our organs in our body, but scientists haven't pinpointed the exact mechanism yet. But they just know that consumption of certain flavonoids have a positive impact on learning, memory, and our energy levels, therefore better for our study. And this is another reason why fruit and vegetables are so beneficial for us. Next is carbohydrates. So if you have ever thought of going on a low carb diet or cutting out carbs or going on the keto diet, I can tell you now your brain will hate you for it, because carbohydrates are the preferred source of fuel for the brain. And this is because carbohydrates are the only macromolecule that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So our macromolecules are carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and we eat them all every day, but carbohydrates are the only one that can cross over into the brain and give us energy. When you're low on carbohydrates, your brain has to switch to a backup. So it has to find a way to convert protein and fat into a type of energy that it can use. However, this is slower, much slower and less preferred. So when you're depleted of carbohydrates and it has to go through this backup mechanism, then your brain processes are going to work slower and not as efficiently. So the types of carbohydrates we want to be focusing on are complex carbs. So when we eat, the components of our food are broken down into sugar, and then the sugar is released into our bloodstream, and then the blood carries the sugar to all the cells of our bodies, and we use this energy to survive. Complex carbohydrates are broken down slower, and the sugar is released slower into our bloodstream, whereas simple carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates are broken down much faster, and all of the sugar is basically dumped into our bloodstream at once. So this means that complex carbohydrates is going to give you a sustained amount of energy over the day, whereas refined carbohydrates is going to give you a high peak of energy and then a crash, basically a sugar crash. So then you'll be very low on energy after that. And research has shown that even a single meal containing these refined carbohydrates can impair memory performance in children and healthy young adults. So this diagram here just describes what I've just said. So the black line is simple carbohydrates. So when you eat simple carbohydrates, the sugar is released really, really fast. It's going to give you a big spike in your blood sugar. It's going to give you a big high in energy, and then your energy is going to go away really quickly, and then you're going to be left feeling tired. With our complex carbohydrates, it's going to have a steady rise over a longer period of time, and then a steady fall. So you're going to feel like a sustained amount of energy, and you're not going to have that crash. Now, here are examples of our simple carbs versus complex carbs. So simple carbs are things like lollies, white bread, biscuits, chocolate, pizza, pasta, white rice, cereal, fizzy drinks, cake. And then our complex carbs are all our whole grains, so whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, oats, brown rice, whole potatoes, fruits and vegetables, legumes, beans, and kumara. You might see that fruit juice is a simple carb, but our whole fruit is a complex carb. And this is because our whole fruit has the fiber in it, and our fruit juice is just the liquid, so it has no fiber in it. So when we drink the fruit juice, it is digested really fast and it goes into our bloodstream really fast. But with the whole fruit, it has fiber. So the fiber allows it to be released slower into our bloodstream and gives us that longer bout of energy. So this is why having a whole piece of fruit is going to be better for our energy levels than a fruit juice. Also, we can see the potato is on the complex carb side, and potatoes usually get a bad rap. But this is because potato has starch and fiber in it, which allows it to digest faster in the body. But if the more it's processed, so chips and things like that, then that's where it gets different. Next, we're going to talk about the gut-brain axis. So what we eat can also indirectly affect our brain through the gut. So our stomach and our brain are connected via a nerve called the vagus nerve. And you might have heard before that we have a large population of good and bad bacteria in our gut. And these microorganisms, they actually communicate to the brain via the vagus nerve. And they can release molecules which can actually alter the physiology of our brain. Therefore, the gut bacteria that we have in our gut can impact on how our brain functions. So the studies on this, in studies in mice with depleted gut bacteria, so they've got no bacteria in their gut, they had cognitive deficits, impaired memory, increased anxiety-like behavior, and increased stress. And in humans, improving the gut microbiome has been shown to improve memory and cognition. So we really want a healthy population of gut bacteria, and lots of diversity in our gut bacteria is going to actually benefit how our brain functions. And then obviously our gut bacteria is going to be largely affected by our diet. So a diet high in saturated fat and added sugars significantly decreases the diversity of our gut microbiome and can promote neuroinflammation, so inflammation in our brain, and cognitive impairments. So this is an example of a diet high in saturated fat and sugar. So we've got processed meat, takeaways, fatty foods, high sugar foods there. But the good news is that we can start to change our gut bacteria population within 24 hours. And the most important dietary factor for our gut microbiome is carbohydrates. And this is because fiber is what feeds the gut bacteria and enables them to thrive. And there's also probiotic foods, which contain living organisms that can contribute to the bacteria in our gut. And I'll give examples of that now. So our prebiotic foods, which is our fiber, things like green leafy vegetables, our whole grains, so oats, whole wheat, pasta, brown rice, whole wheat bread, fruits such as apples and bananas, onions, garlic, soy, and soy products. Those are all our prebiotic foods, our fiber that's going to feed our gut bacteria and enable the gut bacteria to grow nice and healthy. And then our probiotic foods are yogurt and fermented foods such as kimchi, sauerkraut, and pickles. These foods actually contain the bacteria themselves and can add to our gut microbiome and increase the amount of healthy bacteria in there. So by now you might be thinking, well, there's all these vitamins and minerals that are important for the brain. So I'll just go buy a multivitamin and it'll be easy as that. I'll just take a multivitamin and the brain will be all better. But this is obviously not the case. Supplements cannot correct a bad diet. So if you're eating junk food all week and then taking a brain boosting supplement, you're totally wasting your time because you're still putting all of that junk into your body, which is going to displace the nutrients from food, which you actually need nutrients from food, not just from supplements. And it's also going to impact that gut microbiome as well. Also, people will forget to take supplements. So how many of you have bought a multivitamin or something and then taken about half the pack and then completely forgot about it for the next 6 months? Because I know I've definitely done that. So this is not really going to have any benefit to you long term, because you need to be topping up your nutrients every single day. And what do you do every single day? You eat food. It's pretty hard to forget to eat food, but it's hard to forget to take a pill. It's easy to forget to take a pill. So getting your nutrients from food is the most important factor. And also supplements are expensive, and as students, we really don't have room for that in the budget. So you're much better to put your money towards food. And also supplements don't contain flavonoids. So we talked about flavonoids before, which are not a vitamin or mineral. And the components of food that scientists have discovered. So scientists have obviously discovered vitamins and minerals, but that's only a really tiny component of what's actually in food. There's 100 plus more chemicals and molecules in food that scientists actually haven't discovered. So even if you're taking 20 different types of supplements a day, you're not going to be getting those molecules and chemicals from food that are undiscovered and that actually will be really important for us. And finally, the evidence actually shows that there really isn't any benefit to supplements. So for example, when comparing it to food intake, so studies looking at groups who ate fish regularly compared to those who took a fish oil supplement, the results showed huge benefits in the group who was consuming fish and very little benefit in those taking the fish oil supplement. So all in all, food is definitely the better option. Probably the only other exceptions are if you are B12 or iron deficient, then those ones supplementation is important, but all the rest of them, food is where you should be getting your vitamins and minerals. So the common themes that we have seen are fruits and vegetables, whole grains, unprocessed meats, poultry, seafoods, legumes, nuts and seeds. And these are probably the basis of good nutrition, things that really provide us with those vitamins and minerals. Consistency and variety are key. So the more variety of food you eat, the more likely you are to get a range of vitamins and minerals that your body needs. And when you're consistent with this, you'll keep your nutrient stores topped up long term. And variety is also important for your gut microbiome. Our studies have shown that high fruit and vegetable intake is associated with better cognitive performance, and high intakes of processed food are associated with poorer cognitive performance, and the same with refined sugar consumption. So I think if there's one thing you could take away from today's session, it's that to improve your diet immediately would be just to include more fruits and vegetables. Yeah, that's probably the most easiest thing that you can do. But nutrition can seem complicated. So in today's day and age with social media, etc., there's so much false information circulating, and it can make nutrition really confusing. And I'm telling you now, you don't need to do a juice cleanse, you don't need to do intermittent fasting, you don't need to do the keto diet, you don't need to cut out carbs, you don't need to cut out sugar, gluten, or dairy, unless you have an allergy. The keys really for good nutrition is moderation, variety, and consistency. So a diet that focuses on a good variety of fruits and vegetables, grains, meats, etc., natural sugars from fruits, and to not restrict anything. So I like to use the 80-20 rule, so 80% whole foods, and then 20% treat foods, because if you are depriving yourself of treat foods, then you're gonna basically binge eventually. So using the 80-20 rule, everything in moderation. The next couple of slides are just going to go over the New Zealand recommendations for a healthy diet. So this is pretty much what the New Zealand government is standardizing and giving out as information for a healthy diet. So for fruits and vegetables, you want at least 5 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit, and eating as many different colored vegetables as possible, so that variety. So a serving could include half a cup of cooked vegetables or 1 cup of salad, half a medium potato or kumara, yam or taro, 1 piece of fruit, or 1 cup of canned, frozen, or stewed fruit. So there's no restrictions on this. It's saying at least. So basically you want to eat as much vegetables and fruit as you can. Eat at least 6 servings of grains per day, and you want to choose mostly whole grain and high fiber grains. So examples are 2 breakfast wheat bix, half a medium whole grain bread roll or a slice of whole grain bread, half a cup of cooked porridge or oats or muesli, or half a cup of pasta or brown rice. For milk products and milk, at least 2 servings of milk or milk products, and choosing low fat or reduced fat milk products. So a serving size would be 1 glass of milk, a small pot of yogurt, or 2 slices of cheese. And for protein, you want to eat at least 2 servings of protein per day, and your protein can come from legumes, nuts, seeds, fish, seafood, eggs, poultry, or red meat with the fat removed. So examples, 1 cup of dried beans, peas, or lentils, a small handful of nuts or seeds, a fillet of cooked fish, 2 eggs, chicken drumsticks or chicken breast, cooked meat, or half a cup of mince or casserole. So as students, there are a few obstacles that we face that can make it quite hard to eat healthy. But I think if we can acknowledge these and have strategies to get around them, then eating healthy as a student is very much possible. So these barriers are stress, cost, perceived lack of time, late night studying, and lack of accessibility to healthy foods. So I'll go over those in more depth. So lack of accessibility to healthy foods. So by this, I mean when you're going in for a long day of classes or study at the library, and the only options you've got vending machines, cafe, or takeaways. So the ideal option here is to pack ahead of time, pack your meals. So if you know you've got a long day of study, thinking ahead, doing some meal prep, taking snacks with you to keep you fueled up, to keep that brain energy going. Because being, and my top tip here is to always pack more food than you think. Because it's better to have too much food than not enough food, and then you're stuck and have to go for takeaways, or you're underfueled and inadequately fueled, and this is not going to be very beneficial for your productivity. But obviously no one's perfect, and there are going to be days where you just can't be bothered prepping food, or you don't have time. So it is still possible to eat healthy when you've got to buy your food. So if you're going past the supermarket, picking up things like fruit, nuts, crackers and cheese, vegetables are great. Or from a cafe, choosing a whole grain sandwich instead of a pie is great. Or most cafes have egg frittatas, which are also really good. Or if you're just stuck with a vending machine at the library, they usually have packets of nuts, muesli bars, or popcorn. Those would be my top choices, rather than going for a chocolate bar. So those will give you that long-lasting energy and those vitamins and minerals that you need to have the best productivity you can. So the next issue is stress eating. University is obviously a roller coaster of emotions and stressful a lot of the time. So it's definitely common to find yourself mindlessly snacking away while you're doing an assignment, for example. So some things you can do to sort of avoid mindless eating is, often when we're stressed and doing an assignment, we just kind of want something to do, something to fiddle with, and eating can act as a de-stressor. So opting for an alternative like a stress ball, one of those squeezy balls, can be good to fiddle with instead of the motion of eating. Also making sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day. So having a water bottle at your desk or study station to encourage you to stay hydrated, because often we can confuse the feelings of dehydration with hunger. And then also having your drink bottle at your desk can act as kind of the motion of de-stressing as well. And if you're actually hungry, take a break. So take a break, make a snack, sit down and eat that snack with no distractions, so that your brain can recognize when it's actually full, and then go back to studying after you're full. If you're eating and studying at the same time, the studying can distract our brain and impair our ability to recognize our fullness, and that can lead to overeating. So separating the eating period with the studying period. And most importantly, probably, is stocking up on healthy snacks for long study periods, so that you've got healthy options on hand when you're busy, rather than chips or Uber Eats. So here are some examples of some healthy snacks. First one, berries and yogurt. A cost-effective tip for berries is to get them frozen. They're quite expensive if you get them fresh, but frozen, they're there all round. They're pretty cheap, and you can keep them in the freezer on hand and they'll last for ages. So they're always there for a snack. I like to just heat them up in the microwave and then add them on top of some yogurt, and that's a really good nutrient-dense snack that you can have while you're studying. Also, stovetop popcorn. This is way more cost efficient than getting bags of popcorn, because the little packet of kernels will give you like probably 20 of the bags that you can get. And this is a really good alternative to like salty chips if you're used to having those. Rice cakes are also great. You can literally put any sort of toppings on them. Apple or banana and peanut butter. Avocado and tomato, hummus, pickles, cucumber, cream cheese, cottage cheese, or meats. Dark chocolate is great. Dark chocolate actually contains a certain amount of minerals such as magnesium, and making sure that it is actually dark, because the rich flavor will make you satisfied, and you will be able to stop eating after like a couple pieces, rather than the really high sugary milk chocolate that will keep you eating and eating. Other things like cheese and tomato on a whole grain cracker, oats, peanut butter and banana on toast, veggie sticks and hummus, and a handful of nuts. So our next issues are late nights studying. So the issue here is that lack of sleep actually alters our hunger hormones and increases our hunger and cravings for snacks and for sugary foods the next day. So I know it's not always possible, but trying your best to get a good night's rest can level out those hunger hormones and make it easier for you to reach for healthy options the next day, which in turn is going to benefit our brain power. So just weighing up the benefits between the study at late night, and if it's actually going to be beneficial, or if you're going to be more beneficial just to get some rest and be choosing those healthy options the next day. The next one is perceived lack of time. So when you're at uni, you feel like you're constantly studying, you constantly have assignments to do, you've got 1,000,001 tabs open in your brain at once. So often the last thing you feel like doing is cooking a meal. So often this can lead to us reaching for convenience meals, and these are often unhealthy. So takeaways, pizza, 2-minute noodles, pies, etc. These are all quick and easy, but not always the healthiest. So when we're running low on time and we feel like we don't have time, there's actually a lot of convenience meals that can be made healthy. So we'll look at some examples now. So probably my biggest tip is frozen foods. So frozen foods are cost effective. You can literally chuck them in your freezer and forget about them for 6 months and they'll still be there. So you always have them on hand. They're not going to go off in the fridge. Really easy things are crumbed fish or chicken. You can literally pop them in the oven for 15 minutes and then they're done. Good source of protein. Also frozen vegetables. These are great because they're, again, not going to go off in the fridge. And things like frozen potatoes, even the oven baked chips, those are way better still than just like your fish and chips, chips from the fish and chip shop, because those are deep fried, whereas the frozen ones are just oven baked. So that's definitely a healthy alternative if you would usually get those. Frozen grains, so you can get things like this couscous here. That would be a really good healthy meal. Probably just pop it in the microwave and then it's done. So that'd be a really good easy meal if you're doing a long day of study. Also, if you are wanting to get takeaways, opting for things such as pita pit, and like a Mexican burrito bowl instead of your McDonald's and fish and chips. Those are definitely healthier alternatives, even things like Subway. And convenience food, like you can literally have chicken salad sandwich for dinner or a chicken salad wrap. These are really, really easy to make and super healthy as well. So I'm just going to briefly summarize. So we know high processed, high fat, high sugar diet is really unfavorable for the brain function, has a lot of negative effects. And complex carbs, good vitamin and mineral status, and good gut health is favorable for our brain function. So that's what we want to aim for, reducing the processed foods and increasing our healthy ones. A healthy diet is variety and everything in moderation. and to get around the studying situation, planning healthy snacks and healthy meals for our stressful study periods will keep us through. Thanks very much. Do we have any questions? If you have any questions and you don't want to say, you can just pop it in the chat or anything. But yeah.
Yeah, the snack ideas are really great.
Thanks.
even for those that aren't studying anymore, like me.
Yeah, definitely. Often a lot of the time it's like you just forget about like healthy things to eat, and then you realize and you're like, oh, that's so easy. But like it happens to me a lot of the time as well. I'm just like, what can I eat?
And you studied this, so makes the rest of it easier. Oh, well, thank you, Marizanne, for joining us. I have obviously recorded this, so I'm going to stop the recording now because we'll just chat generally. Give me a sec.